Nobody got rich by having a brilliant day. They got rich by being less stupid than everyone else for decades. That's the blunt thesis Charlie Munger lived by and taught. Wealth is more about avoiding repeated obvious mistakes than chasing dazzling breakthroughs. This video is exactly what the title promises. Charlie Munger, 10 life-changing lessons from a billionaire. 10 principles, each simple, each practical, each aimed at changing the way you think and decide. Start by remembering the common trap. People want novelty, excitement, and quick fixes. The media glorifies overnight success. Social proof pushes us toward what everyone else is doing. Emotions steer money and decisions. Munger and his partner Warren Buffett built a career by resisting those pulls, by thinking in models, by preferring clarity over cleverness, by letting time and compounding do the heavy lifting. Before we dive into the lessons, if you want more of these timeless mental models and practical ways to think better about money, work, and decisions, like or save this video now. It helps us do long-form breakdowns like this. All right, let's begin. Lesson 1. Invert the problem principle. Ask, how can I fail? Before you ask, how can I succeed? Why it matters. Inversion is thinking backward. Instead of brainstorming success strategies, list every plausible way to ruin the outcome. The mind naturally seeks cause and effect. Inversion forces you to spot traps, blind spots, and avoidable errors. Also, it reduces over-optimism. People assume their plans will work and ignore the simplest routes to catastrophe. Example, the dot-com bubble. In the late 1990s, the world was dazzled by new technology and rising prices. Most investors asked, which internet company will explode? Munger and Buffett asked the opposite. How will we lose our capital? They avoided businesses they didn't understand, avoided mania-priced stocks, and protected their capital. That discipline meant they didn't have to make up losses later with outsized bets. Mental model framing. Inversion is a universal mental model. Use it for career plans, partnerships, product launches, and personal habits. If you want health, ask, what habits will make me sick? If you want a successful business, ask, what will make this business die? The answers are often cheaper and clearer than hunting for the elusive perfect tactic. Action this week. Pick one major decision you face. Write down at least 5 ways it could go wrong. For each, list a preventive step to reduce that risk. Takeaway. Stop searching only for wins. First, remove the ways to lose. Lesson 2. Repeat what works. The power of non-stupid repetition. Principle. Don't reinvent the wheel. Repeat a superior process and let compounding do the rest. Why it matters. Small advantages, consistently applied, become decisive over long time horizons. Compounding isn't only about money, it's also about habits, reputation, and skills. Repeating a reliable method reduces variance and avoids the emotional churn of chasing novelty. Example, C's Candies. This is the kind of small, well-run business Berkshire admired. Simple, predictable, doing the same thing right year after year. It isn't flashy, but steady profits and reliable management make a difference, especially when you value survival and consistent returns. Compare that to risky chasing of fads that can evaporate quickly. Math check. If you achieve a modest 8% improvement compounded annually over 30 years, that multiplies your result many times. By contrast, chasing a single 50% breakthrough and failing even once can wipe out years of steady gains. Also remember the painful math of loss. If you lose 50%, you need a 100% gain to get back to even. Repetition of sound actions reduces the chance of catastrophic drawdowns. Action this week. Identify one reliable high-value action you can repeat for the next 30 days. Write it down, schedule it, and commit to doing it consistently. Takeaway: consistent, non-stupid repetition beats intermittent brilliance. Lesson 3. Be a learning machine. Principle: read broadly, think across disciplines, and convert new knowledge into better decisions. Why it matters. Munger called himself a lifelong learner because the world links fields together. To solve complex problems, you need multiple mental models: economics, psychology, math, history. The more models you carry, the better you can see interactions, trade-offs, and hidden risks. Example: Robert Cialdini's work on influence demonstrates how simple psychological triggers shape behavior. Munger used ideas like reciprocity, commitment, and social proof to understand business negotiations, marketing, and leadership. He didn't stop at business books. He absorbed psychology, math, and history to build a toolbox that made decision-making more robust. Mental model framing. Multidisciplinary thinking reduces the illusion that any one specialty holds all the answers. It is especially valuable in uncertain environments where simple extrapolations fail. Action this week. Read one article or a chapter from a book outside your main field. Note 3 ideas that could apply to your work or investing approach. Takeaway: the broader your mental models, the fewer terrible mistakes you'll make. Lesson 4. Concentration when you understand deeply. Principle: place fewer, well-understood bets rather than scattering attention across many things you barely comprehend. Why it matters. There's a tension between diversification, reduce risk by many small bets, and concentration, deep conviction in a few. Munger favored concentration when deep understanding is present, because a well-timed high-conviction position amplifies returns and reduces the noise of constant rebalancing. Example: Coca-Cola. When Berkshire bought a large position in Coca-Cola, it was not an act of momentum chasing. It was a concentrated bet based on understanding brand durability, distribution advantages, and predictable cash flows. The conviction allowed them to sit through volatility instead of selling on noise. Counterexample: most people do. Many investors diversify not out of strategy, but out of fear or a buzzword mentality. They own dozens or hundreds of positions without understanding any of them. That is false safety. If you don't know what you own, diversification is just dispersion. Action this week. Pick one thing you think you understand well. Research it another level deeper. If you still understand it tomorrow, consider whether concentrated attention or resources there make sense for your goals. Takeaway: when you truly understand something, focus your effort where it counts. Lesson 5. Read incentives. First principle: always check the incentives under any system. They explain most behavior. Why it matters. Incentives are as close to a universal law of human behavior as you find outside physics. People respond to rewards and penalties. If you can read incentives clearly, you can predict actions, avoid traps, and design better decisions for yourself and others. Example: business arrangements with misaligned incentives create predictable failures. A salesman rewarded only for volume may missell. A manager rewarded for short-term metrics, may cut long-term value. Munger taught to read incentives before trusting promises. Robert Cialdini's research dovetails here. Influence tactics work because they exploit predictable incentive and social mechanisms. Practical check. Ask 2 questions before you trust any expert or deal. Who benefits if this succeeds? Who benefits if it fails? If incentives don't align with your interest, be skeptical. Action this week. For a financial decision, job offer, or partnership, write down the incentive structure for every party involved. If anyone's incentives create a likely conflict with your goals, pause. Takeaway. Incentives explain behavior. Read them first. Lesson 6. Favor simplicity and clarity. Principle. Simpler plans win because they're easier to understand, execute, and correct. Why it matters. Complexity creates hidden failure modes. The more moving parts you have, the more ways things can go wrong. Simplicity forces you to expose underlying assumptions and reduces the risk of unexpected interactions. Example. Berkshire's approach to buying businesses is instructive. They prefer understandable companies with straightforward economics, not a maze of derivatives or esoteric structures. The Coca-Cola stake and some of their small business purchases show an attraction to clarity. If you can explain how the company earns money in one sentence, you're already ahead. Mental model framing. Occam's razor. Prefer simpler explanations that fit the facts. In decision-making, simplicity is a risk management tool. Action this week. Take one complicated project you're involved with and write a 1-paragraph explanation of how it creates value. If you struggle, simplify the project or seek clarity on the missing pieces. Takeaway. Complexity hides risk. Clarity exposes truth. Lesson 7. Accept reality. Stoic resilience. Principle. See the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Treat setbacks as tests, not tragedies. Why it matters. Reality isn't negotiable. Denial wastes precious time and capital. Munger, influenced by Stoic thinkers like Epictetus, emphasized seeing facts plainly. That doesn't mean pessimism. It means aligning action with what's true. Example. When markets drop or a business underperforms, the correct response is pragmatic. Assess damage, act to preserve capital, and learn. Survivorship is essential. If you don't survive downturns, you can't compound wins later. Munger's insistence on avoiding catastrophic mistakes is rooted in this reality-first approach. Stoic angle. Epictetus taught to focus on what you control, your judgments and actions. Munger applied this. Control what you can, decisions, circle of competence, accept what you cannot, market noise, and act accordingly. Action this week. Identify one situation where you are in denial or clinging to wishful thinking. Write the facts as they are, not as you hope. Then outline one practical step to align your behavior with reality. Takeaway. Truth first. Survival second. Hope is a byproduct of sober action. Lesson 8. Explain the why principle. If you can't explain the reason for a decision simply, you probably don't understand it well enough to act on it. Why it matters. Clarity of explanation tests your thinking. If you can't explain a plan or investment in a sentence, you leave room for error, temptation, and poor follow-through. Explaining the why also persuades others and creates accountability. Two valuable forces when decisions must be executed over long periods. Example. Business managers who can't articulate why their company competes effectively are often masking weak advantages. Munger demanded clear, simple explanations for why a business should succeed. That clarity allowed Berkshire to commit capital confidently and to keep or fold as conditions changed. Practical use. When pitching a project, hiring, or investment, force yourself to answer, "Why does this work?" in under 60 seconds. If you stumble, return to study. Action this week. Take a current plan and write a 1-minute verbal explanation of why it should succeed. Practice saying it aloud until it's coherent. Takeaway. If you can't explain it, you don't own it. Lesson 9. Kill envy. Focus on your game. Principle. Ignore envy and social comparison. Use setbacks and other people's success as data, not a scoreboard. Why it matters. Envy distorts incentives and decisions. It pushes people toward status-driven short-term moves rather than long-term rational choices. Instead of copying what worked for someone else, understand whether that path suits your skills, capital, and temperament. Example, Munger and Buffett were not driven by flashy status. They preferred quiet conviction, patient markets, and businesses that rewarded rational pricing. Their focus on consistent processes, not competition for attention, is a core reason for their longevity. Psychological framing. Envy is a cognitive tax. Every time you chase someone else's outcome, you reduce the probability you reach yours. Compare instead to an internal baseline. Are you improving relative to past self? That's the metric that compounds. Action this week. Identify one area where you've been comparing yourself to others. Replace social comparison with a measurable personal goal and track progress privately. Takeaway. Ignore other people's highlight reels. Build your compounding ledger. Lesson 10. Use hard times as a test and a teacher principle. Hard times reveal character, competence, and opportunity. Use them to learn and to position for later gains. Why it matters. Crises separate the prepared from the improvised. They test systems under stress and offer opportunities for those who kept capital, clarity, and courage. Compounding requires surviving bad periods. The best investors earn outsized returns by acting when others panic. Example, over Berkshire's long history, the ability to withstand market downturns allowed the company to allocate capital at attractive prices. Small businesses that stayed disciplined during uncertain times often emerged stronger. Munger viewed setbacks not as punishments, but as tests that validate or falsify strategies. Practical note, the capacity to act during crises requires reserves, cash, relationships, and mental composure. That's why avoiding catastrophic, avoidable losses matters so much. You need optionality when prices fall and everyone else is selling. Action this week. Run a simple stress test. What would you do if your main income fell by 30% next month? Outline 3 concrete steps you could take to stabilize and adapt. Takeaway. Prepare, survive, and learn. Then allocate when others can't. Why these lessons knit together? All 10 lessons are not isolated rules. They form a cohesive architecture of decision-making. Inversion and incentive reading reduce the chance of big mistakes. Repetition and compounding amplify small advantages into significant outcomes. Multidisciplinary learning furnishes the tools to interpret novel situations. Concentration focuses scarce capital and attention where insight exists. Simplicity and clarity reduce hidden risks and improve execution. Stoic acceptance, humility, and avoiding envy preserve the ability to act over decades. Using hard times as learning opportunities converts adversity into advantage. Practical 30-day plan, a concrete start. If you want to turn these lessons into action, here's a disciplined 30-day program that fits Munger's spirit. It's simple and cumulative, designed to create new habits, not overhaul your life overnight. Day 1 to 7. Clarify and invert. Pick one major decision: career move, investment idea, business strategy. Spend the first 3 days writing down all the ways it could fail, at least 10. For each failure, list a practical prevention or mitigation. Choose one prevention action to implement immediately. Day 8-14. Read and explain. Commit to reading 15 pages a day from diverse sources: psychology, history, economics. At the end of each reading session, write a one-paragraph explanation of how the idea could apply to your decision or work. Day 15-21. Simplify and repeat. Identify one complex process in your life. Distill it to a one-paragraph value creation statement. Pick one reliable task to repeat daily that compounds value: writing, outreach, saving, learning, and schedule it. Day 27. Test incentives and focus. Map incentives for 2 important relationships or contracts you're in. Drop one social comparison habit. Mute a feed, unfollow a distracting account, or limit certain conversations. Double down attention on the single thing you understand best. Schedule 2 uninterrupted 1-hour blocks to work on it. Day 28-30. Prepare for hard times and commit. Run a simple stress test on your finances or project. Define a 3-step contingency plan. Choose one habit to keep beyond 30 days: reading, repetition, or inversion, and commit to it publicly. Tell a friend or post it. Repeat these cycles quarterly. Small, consistent actions are where Munger believed advantage compounds. A few clarifying math checks and mental model reminders. Lost math. If you lose 50%, you need a 100% gain to return to your starting point. If you lose 20%, you need a 25% gain. These simple ratios punish big mistakes. Compounding math. A modest advantage compounded over decades beats many one-time gambles. This isn't mystical, it's arithmetic plus patience. Mental models to carry: inversion, opportunity cost, incentives, margin of safety, and the power of simple explanation. Carry these like tools in a toolkit. Use the right one for the job. Common mistakes most people make, and how these lessons fix them. Chasing novelty. Fix with repetition, concentration, and reading incentives. Over-diversify them because of fear. Fix with deep learning and focused bets where you understand value. Falling for social proof and influence tactics. Fix with a discipline to read incentives and check motives. Assuming short-term luck equals skill. Fix with long-term performance checks and humility. A closing reality check. None of this guarantees billion-dollar outcomes. That caveat is crucial. Munger never sold a story that following his rules promised riches. What he did offer, plainly and insistently, was a way to increase the probability of better outcomes over time. That probability comes from avoiding catastrophic errors, compounding small advantages, reading reality clearly, and learning across disciplines. If you accept that most dramatic wealth results stem from long-term discipline rather than daily brilliance, your priorities change. You stop hunting tricks and start building systems. You choose clarity over cleverness, survival over flash, and learning over mere opinion. Final challenge and call to action. Here's the simple challenge. Pick one or two habits from this list. Invert one decision. Commit to 15 pages a day of diverse reading, or repeat one productive action daily, and do them for the next 30 days. Track progress privately and reassess at the end of the month. If this helped, watch our deep dive playlist on concentration versus diversification, or download the one-page checklist of these 10 lessons from the link in the description. Charlie Munger's rules aren't glamorous, but they work. Start boring, stay consistent, and let time do the rest.